Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's Botsok Conservation webinar, where we have an exciting lineup of three speakers for you. You'll see we are an all ladies crowd this evening, so we are excited for that. Thank you so much for joining us. As a first, I'd like to invite you to pop where you are dialing in from in the chat. I see there's some people from Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, also from other parts in the Western Cape, Limpopo, and also Maritzburg. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. Those of you that haven't popped your note in the chat, you're welcome to continue doing that. And we hope you're warm, because down here in Cape Town, it's absolutely freezing. As I'm sure you can see, many of us are wearing some really winter warm clothing. Yeah, so we start quite shortly. I'll introduce our speakers to you. Just quickly to recap, our Botsok webinar is always recorded. So everyone is welcome to recap it afterwards on the Botsok website or on the Botsok YouTube channel. We're going to give our presenters time to present and then also allow questions. So if there's any questions for our speakers, please also pop us a question in the chat, and perhaps to who the question is also directed to. Thanks so much. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first two speakers, Sandra van Hoogstraten and Maya Nauman. They are representing the Sugarbird Trust this week, and it is one of, I guess, an excellent project, speaking to the title of the webinar this month, Clearing Alien Invasive Plants with Purpose. We know that alien invasive plants is one of our biggest threats to our biodiversity and also our many endemic species we have in the Western Cape and across the country. So we'd really like to give opportunity for Sandra and Maya to share with us some of the success stories of their program, but also the lessons learned and some of the challenges that these programs, often encounter. So just very briefly from my side, Sandy and Maya founded the Sugarbird Project some years ago and have been involved in alien clearing for many, many years. They have at the moment at least 68 people working full-time on the project, and they are making significant headway specifically in the Table Mountain National Park. That's where the boundaries of their project mostly focuses. And even though they've made significant strides, of course, many challenges remain, especially with the extent of alien invasive species and woody biomass, I guess, in particular for the Table Mountain National Park. The Sugarbird Project has, in a way, developed a decentralized, scalable model, which will hopefully provide insights for other programs and projects that, could be replicated elsewhere. So I'm going to hand over to Sandra and to Maya to take us through their presentation, and then we'll take a few questions after that. Thank you, Sandy. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Martina. Maya's actually going to start. Maya, over to you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Maya. Thank you for hosting us. I think what I just want to start with saying is that Sandy and I are not botanists, so it's a bit daunting to speak to the Botanical Society. But I think the strength of our program is just that we are just normal citizens with normal lives and families and jobs, and we saw this problem and we started to think, well, how can we contribute to solving this? And bit by bit, we've started to do things, and it's had great effect. So we just want to tell you all about it and encourage everybody that as citizens of our country, we can do things to make a difference. I'm not seeing our slides. Are they up? What are people seeing now?
So I think, Sandra, if you can share the slides from your side, and then we'll just wait for it to appear on the screen.
Okay,
here we go. So that's a beautiful picture of a sugarbird. So our project is called the Sugarbird Project because the sugarbird is one of the endemic birds, endemic to the Cape Floral Kingdom. So it's basically, if the Cape Floral Kingdom is not there, the sugarbird doesn't have food and it will not survive. So that's why we've made it the emblem of our project, because we are protecting its food source, but really the whole ecosystem that goes with that. Can you go to the next one, Sandy?
Sorry, sorry.
Okay, there we go. So just, yeah, about the Cape Floral Kingdom, there's a threat of invasive alien plants. I think a lot of people know this already, but I just wanted to, these are the kind of the things that we are going to be hitting as we go through the presentation. But I just want, by way of introduction, tell you a bit about the Cape Floral Kingdom for those that don't know. Again, I'm not a botanist, but this kind of information, the beauty of the diversity that we are surrounded with in Cape Town and, in the whole Cape Floral Kingdom, it's just, if somebody goes for regular walks on the mountain, which we get to do, you see it. You see the diversity. You see that there's just, multiple different plants, different flowers, different animals that are there. And it's precious and it's unique, and it's not something that we find anywhere else in the world. If you show the next slide, Sandy, it shows our floral kingdom in context. And this slide always blows my mind because it looks at, this is a map of the whole world. And we basically are divided into 6 floral kingdoms. And at the tip of Africa, there's a tiny little red dot. It's geographically the smallest of all the floral kingdoms, obviously. But what's also interesting about this is that it's the only one that's within the borders of a single country, meaning the Cape Floral Kingdom really belongs to South Africa. We are the custodians of this floral kingdom. We're the only ones that have access to it, and we're the only ones that can really make sure that it survives. As South Africans, this is our job. This is our heritage, and we have to protect it. But our small floral kingdom is, we've got this amazing reputation as being the most biodiverse, so we can call ourselves the biodiversity capital of the world, Cape Town, but we can also call ourselves the extinction capital of the world, because these plants are all under threat. It's from development, yes, and from kind of land being used for different reasons. But what the single biggest threat to our Cape Floral Kingdom is invasive alien plants. So that's why we really need to clear them. If you look at these photographs, you see iconic Table Mountain in the background. In the foreground, there's on the left-hand picture, a big clump of Port Jackson, there's pine in the middle, and there's Rooikrans on the right. And these are plants that are threatening the local plants. If you go on to the next one, Sandy, this shows a dune that was taken in De Hoop Nature Reserve. And if you look from far, it looks green. But if you look closer, I walked up to this dune and took close-ups, and this is the kind of diversity that you're seeing there. Multiple different flowers. You can go on to the next one. So from far away, it looks green. If you look up closer, there's diversity. Then a little bit further down the road, just go back to the green one. Yeah, that one. A bit further down that same dune, there was an invasion of Rooikrans. It's on the next slide, Sandy. Just the one full of green. Yes. Okay. So that also looked green from the distance. And when I walked up closer to that and took close-ups of all of that, it was all same. So what invasive plants do, they are monocultures that really push out everything around them and take up their habitats, take up their food, and basically displace them. So if we allow these plants to grow unchecked, we are going to lose the species that we have in the Cape Floral Kingdom. And just on the previous slide, it said, that authorities do not have the manpower or the money to get rid of this by themselves. It's going to take a concerted effort from citizens like us and our project, together with the authorities, to get this problem under control. This is another example. You see here a gum belt on the left. Where gums grow, gums suck up a lot of water. You see there's a whole dead space around it. Nothing else grows there. This hill is it's on Signal Hill. It's Rhinoceros. It's supposed to be, completely blooming with lots of different bushes, lots of plants. But where the gums grow, it takes away the water and the habitat of everything else. So yeah, we need to protect the critical biodiversity of the Cape Floral Kingdom. It's also important for water and the fauna and flora that are there. The next one, I think Sandy's going to go on to just kind of how we are tackling this problem. So we noticed this problem, we saw that it's there, and we thought, what can we do? And we started on a small scale, and then we found a lot of help, and we got bigger. So Sandy, you want to tell us about that?
Thank you, Maya. And good evening, everyone. So the Sugarbird project started when Maya and I met, and both of us separately had complained to our husbands bitterly about all the invasive aliens growing where we walk on Table Mountain. And both husbands independently said, stop complaining and do something. And so we decided to do something. So we started the Sugarbird project. It's a non-profit organization. We started it a few years ago. And we operate almost entirely on Table Mountain, in Table Mountain National Park, which is 25,000 hectares. So that's a large area, and it is heavily invaded. It's a mammoth task. And when we started doing this, we both thought that we wouldn't really get the whole park under control in our lifetimes, but that has changed, and we're now starting to feel quite balk about the situation. And so if you look at the map, the green areas we have under control. So altogether, those green and yellow areas is what we've adopted from SANParks. SANParks gives us a permit every year. And we have an amazing collaborative relationship with SANParks. And that is something that I'll just touch on again and again. It's just the importance of collaborative relationships and bringing in as many people and just making it a very positive, collaborative experience. So the green areas, sorry, Table Mountain is divided into NBULs. So each of those areas is an NBUL. And so that's how we map everything out and how we sort of record how we work, our progress. The green areas we have got completely under control, and we just do annual follow-ups. And the yellow areas, we've adopted them, but we don't yet have them under control. And some of those little areas look small, but each of those is enormous, and there can be hundreds of thousands of trees growing in each of those areas. And I mean, one of those NBULs can take a team of 6 men 6 months. Others are quicker. I mean, for example, this yellow area here, if you can see my pointer, that's Kirstenbosch. I mean, it's just, or that's Newlands Forest. It's enormous. That's Kirstenbosch, etc. That's Orange Cliff there. So we've grown over the years, but mostly we grew a lot last year. We've got 12 permanent teams with 68 men working full-time on this project. We also have 18 volunteers who run the project. Maya and I are 2 of those 18 volunteers, and everyone just brings in the skills that they've got, and people just do it for love and for the joy of seeing, this degraded landscape restored to its pristine glory. And we also work with as many local conservation groups as possible. So those are our teams. I'm just going to run through these slides quickly, but I do want to the pictures just do give a good idea. Those are our teams around Table Mountain, and that's more of them around Table Mountain. So all the different areas we work. And in the top left corner, that's the Cecilia team with some BOTSOC trainees. They really loved having some women BOTSOC trainees for a few days. And then the next picture here is local groups. So we partner with local groups, and we do maybe weekend hacks where that local team, say in this instance, it's the Devil's Peak team, which then on a Saturday does a hack with local community volunteers, and that sort of draws more people in. And the great benefit of that is that when we've done the heavy lifting to clear the initial very, very heavy invasion, we then can sometimes leave as much as possible to local volunteers to do follow-ups, and that's free labor. And hacking is very expensive and very hard work. And so the more free labor you can get, the better. Sometimes we do blitzes. If an area is just really tough, we just get all the teams together on a Saturday morning and we do a blitz, and we just clear the whole slope in the morning. And it's just much better for morale that way. And then the volunteers, we've got volunteers, for example, Dr. Tony Robello is a botanist. He knows, I think, everything there is to know about fynbos, and it's just great to have him always on call. Everything is run in WhatsApp groups, so he's on the relevant WhatsApp groups, and he oversees our Takai team. Liz Sparg, I'm just giving you examples. She has a WhatsApp group of about 200 members, and about once a month she plans a community hack in Newlands Forest or Rhodes Mem. So you can see there on the top right-hand corner, it's community members, and school kids come, and it's just a great way to get the locals addicted to hacking. It really is addictive, and the more people you can get addicted, the better, because the more free labor you've got to get the job done. And then Anton Veers is an absolute star, because he has mapped out he's mapped out the entire mountain for us, and he keeps a record of what we've done, what's been done, what species are in each NBUL have been done, and all the team leaders have got on their phones, it's called Q Field. They can see exactly where they are on the mountain, what NBUL they're in, etc. So we use quite a lot of tech. I won't claim any of that. That's definitely Anton. So you see, we just share out the skills and the jobs. That's more volunteers. So each team is overseen by someone locally who's shown an interest in that area. So, I mean, for example, down here, this is Willem Boshoff, and he started the Newlands Forest Conservation Group. So he really loves Newlands Forest so much. So he then helps to oversee our Newlands Forest team. So, I mean, the great benefit of this is that our project is very decentralized, and we bring in a lot of free resources, people who do it for the love of conservation. And then so then this man in the top right hand corner, Glenn Mabeka, we have a project manager who just overall, does things like make sure the teams have tools that are sharp and have the right kit and are working to a high standard. And he's very good for their morale, and he's a role model. And it's he gets their shoes resold. We have to have that because it's a lot of men, and we're all just volunteers. And Maya has 4 kids, I've got 2 kids, and jobs and etc. But it all works really well. So here's an example of, so the Freda Hook, so once a month they'll post something like that on their WhatsApp group, and then the locals come and work with one of our teams, and it just makes for a great atmosphere, and the teams feel very supported and appreciated. And obviously the local group does follow-ups for the team. So how we operate is we obviously, I mean, Maya and I spend quite a lot of time fundraising. It's very expensive. But I think the great beauty of our model is that donors really like the fact that all of their money, you can see the donors are in blue, and this blue arrow, all of their money goes to the actual teams doing the actual hard work, braving the elements out there in the sun, the rain, the wind, doing the actual work, and obviously to equipping them and kitting them out with PPE. And then the trustees work pro bono, and so do the local overseers in all the different areas. And of course, the overseers think we're great because they initially just started doing it themselves, and they realized that they just couldn't clear their area wherever they're based. And then when we swept in and offered them a whole team, they think we're Father Christmas, and we think they're Father Christmas, and that all just works really well. So it's an efficient, decentralized, scalable model that we hope will be started by other people in other areas of the Cape Floral Kingdom. Just quickly, 86% of our budget, which for last year was about 10 million or 8 to 10 million, 86% went to the teams, to the men, 8% to their tools, 4% to, I guess, Glenn, who does the quality control, and 2% to team training, admin fees, and bank charges, and literally nothing to all the things that have to happen to make this project a success, oversight, planning, fundraising, etc. So I think that's just very efficient and is nicely decentralized. So, I mean, certainly on Table Mountain, but I think all over the Western Cape, and in fact, across South Africa, just dealing with invasive species, because the problem doesn't just stop with the Cape Floral Kingdom. All across the country, there are invasive species, both flora and fauna. It's a colossal challenge, not to be underestimated. Here on the left, this is black wattle. See, it's just growing like hairs on a dog's back. This is after the fire. This is on Devil's Peak after the fire of 2021. And then this picture on the right is the men have cleared it. And it doesn't look great initially, but all those dead trees, those cut trees will just wither and die, and fynbos will come back beautifully by itself. Oh, sorry, just to go back to this slide, just to take the black wattle as an example. Alien vegetation it's almost like an oil spill that breathes and lives and self-replicates and is just determined to succeed, as we all are. So a black wattle seedling or a plant, a tree, will double in stem width and in height every year for the first few years, and once mature, it'll start releasing up to 12,000 seeds every season. So there's this constant fight to try and get ahead. We could go 1 step forward, but 2 steps back. As we speak, all of these plants growing on Table Mountain are busy adding biomass as we speak. So it really is a race against time, which is why one of our pieces of advice is, if you're going to do something, start now, do it as soon as possible, because the sooner you get to that tree, the smaller it is when you get to it, and the less work it's going to be, and the fewer seeds it will have dropped. Then also just to give you an idea of the scale of the challenge that we're facing, this is Blackwood. Blackwood, the upper reaches of Devil's Peak and the tabletop is infested with Blackwood. You can see here on the left. And Blackwood is absolutely determined to survive and thrive on the mountain. And it like grey poplar as well, it sends up suckers from the roots. It's got a very extensive root network, very, very extensive. It sends up suckers from the roots. And if you just cut a Blackwood tree down, it will panic and to get into survival mode, and it'll just throw up a whole lot more suckers. So you can't just cut and poison. You have to actually frill, which is to ring bark, remove the bark from the lower parts of the stem, and then apply herbicide. You have to frill and apply ring bark and apply herbicide to every single stem, no matter how tiny or how large. So that just gives you an idea of the scale of our challenge. I'm just going to run through a few pictures from the different teams. So our project works on I just am the biggest fan of WhatsApp. without WhatsApp, I don't think we could run this project. So every team has a WhatsApp group with their overseers on it, their local overseers, and with us. And this guy, Anton Veers, who knows a lot, and he just answers all our questions, and Tony's on many of them, Dr. Tony Rebello. And so every morning they clock in with a photograph of themselves, and every afternoon they clock out. We ask 6 hours of honest work from them. We don't expect them to work hard because it's really, long hours because it's very hard work. So we just ask for 6 hours, and they clock in each morning, they clock out every afternoon, and they send us before pictures of the, and then after of the work they've done. So here's an example from Chapman's Peak. The first one is Roykrantz removed, and then the second one is Port Jackson removed, and the third is Pines removed. And that's Orange Cliff, which is a very beautiful restricted access area of Table Mountain, where they've removed pines, blackwood, they've dealt with blackwood, and that's longifolia. Atlantic Seaboard, so that's just above Camps Bay. They've removed their Roykrantz. It looks like more Roykrantz, and Port Jackson. Newlands Forest, lots of forest species that I don't actually know very well, but looks like that's Chinese privet and common privet removed. We have a rope access team because obviously some areas of the mountain are not easily accessible. And we just love to constantly try to upskill our guys. We love our guys and they love us, and we treat them well, and we try to upskill them as much as possible. And so these guys have rope access skills that was taught to them by volunteers. Cecilia Forest and Kirsten Bosch, lots of gums growing there. Here you can see the men have frilled these large gums. And also other things, baby gums being pulled out. And here's lantana and more longifolia. Devil's Peak on the Rhodes Mem side, unbelievable amounts of black wattle, just never ending. And you have to just go back every year because it just comes back. But eventually, every year when you go back, it just gets easier and easier. And then the City Bowl side of Devil's Peak, there you can see large gums quite large gums that we removed, more black wattle, and then there's the blackwood picture you saw before. And then we do have one team in Hermanus because there's such a wonderful man in Hermanus called Andrew White who was keen to take charge and make things happen. So we gave him a team, and they've done incredible work so far. They only started this year. There's lots of pines there. They're working on the Clay and Rafia Mountains and also on the Onorous Mountains, so both sides of Hermanus. And Andrew's very good at partnering with, in fact, some of the hacks are with the next speaker, Michelle, Wild Restoration. Some of the hacks we partner with them, we all get together and just go and just club an area. Collaboration is so key in this game. So our clearing methods, the most effective clearing method doesn't really involve us much. It's biocontrol. So if you are going to choose an area and say, I'm going to adopt this area and I'm going to turn this area from an infested dystopian site to something pristine and beautiful, then first check if there's biocontrol, because you don't want to go to all the work of clearing hackiers and then find out actually there's biocontrol and the hackiers will actually just die by themselves. Otherwise, second best option is hand pulling. Which is usually best after a fire. Your seeds will germinate, and especially during winter when the ground is soft, you can just hand pull. That's very non-invasive. You don't need herbicide. That's definitely a second best option. And sometimes you may need a little garden fork, because some species like Port Jackson don't come out easily, even really with hand pulling, even when they're quite small. Loppers, you'll see at the bottom here, these men are carrying loppers. That's for a slightly bigger plant, if you can't or if the ground is hard, or if you can't hand pull it, and then you have to apply herbicide mostly. Some species don't require herbicide. Most species do, because of course the plant wants to survive, so they're going to coppice. They're going to use the energy in the roots and send up new shoots. Bow saw for slightly bigger. There you can see this man's holding a bow saw here. Important to keep them sharp, obviously. Poppers, a popper, on the next page, there's a popper. There's this volunteer here holding a popper. Poppers, people often ask us, why don't we use poppers? Because poppers don't require herbicides, so they're great, but they're actually very, very heavy to carry. They are perfect for volunteers because volunteers don't need to get involved in mixing herbicide because that's quite technical. And you just pop even a big plant out, it uses leverage, and they're extremely effective tools. Volunteers tend to work quite close to like a parking site or quite with easy access, so they don't walk too far. And volunteers tend to do follow-ups. So you're not doing a lot in one area. If you're doing a lot of plants in one area, it's much better just to cut and apply herbicide. Let me just go back to that. And then ring barking for larger, you saw various ring barking for larger trees that you want them to leave them standing for whatever reason. Sometimes you want the tree to keep the canopy, say, in the forests that you keep shade. Or chainsawing is a great option that we're using more and more. Highly effective. And then obviously you have to apply herbicide to certain species, and a clearing method really would be to follow fires. We're learning that more and more, because fires just means you're starting from scratch and you can just get those when they're small. So Maya's going to talk you through an incredible opportunity that's come our way. Is there was a fire in April this year, which burnt almost 3,000 hectares of Table Mountain. And Sandparks has asked us to manage that entire fire response. And Maya's going to talk you through that. Over to you, Maya.
Thanks. So yeah, Sandy was saying it's a massive area that burnt. And I know the most of Cape Town was saying, oh dear, terrible, this is a horrible fire, look at the fire scar. But our botanist colleagues have been saying to us, has been a fantastic fire, and it's a wonderful opportunity for vegetation regeneration. So what was on this land that burnt, there were quite a lot of mature invasive species growing there, that would have taken years and lots of money to clear. But this has now all been raised to the ground. So now we're sitting with land that has a seed bank that has fynbos seeds in it and also invasive seeds. And after fire, 90% of the seeds that are kind of in the seed bank of the invasive species will germinate. So we now have a golden opportunity to pull the seedlings as they come up, and it will really get rid of 90% of the invasives in that whole burnt area. So what we are planning to do is we are employing an additional 100 people to work in 10 teams of 10 each for a period of 3 months, where they will pull seedlings every day, the whole day. And hopefully we can get the whole area covered. In addition to these employed people, we will also be coordinating efforts of volunteers from all over Cape Town. We are going to be approaching schools. We're going to ask all the volunteer groups that work in those areas to collaborate with us and yeah, really just throw everything we have at that area between September and November, maybe December of this year, while the soil is still soft, where you can pull those seedlings without them breaking off. You don't need herbicide, you don't need any kind of special tools. You really just need a grubber and a pair of hands. So we are very excited about this project. Yeah, on this picture you can see, I think that's Glenn on his knees there, with a Port Jackson that is, twice the height of a man. And that is in Deer Park. That was after the fire of 2018, where
2021.
there wasn't a response. And if we had pulled those, we wouldn't need this. So now we had a whole team of men working on this particular area that was much, much smaller than what we're dealing with in Tokai. But it took them I think it took 6 months for one team to work through this area. So that's a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of equipment. And we now have an opportunity to just deal with with the seedlings coming up in one go. And it will have really, broken the back of invasives in that area, which is a massive, massive win and a great opportunity. So yeah, on the map, you can see the whole red area, and that red area is as large as everything that we've cleared to date. So it really is a great opportunity to double up the territory that we have under control.
Should I summarize, Maya, or do you want to?
Go for it, you summarize.
Okay, so this is our final slide. Just want to summarize for you our top tips. So Tony Robello has a saying which I just love when it comes to alien clearing, and that is every square meter counts. So if you're thinking of doing a bit of alien clearing in your area, that's it. Just every square meter that you can take and make pristine again, it's priceless. It's absolutely priceless to just find a field of an invaded field and a slope invaded with pines or whatever, and just bring it back to this pristine, priceless, magnificent fynbos or Afro-montane forest. And so our tips are: the sooner the better. Don't be put off. How to eat the elephant is just one bite at a time. Just make a start, but do it soon. My father always says, he's also an alien clearer, that's where I get it from. He says alien plants and children are like children. The sooner you invest in them, the better. So whatever resources you've got, invest in it now. The second piece of advice is to follow the fires, because it makes it much easier, much cheaper, much less harmful to the slopes, because you're not using any herbicide or anything. If you can, get together a permanent team. And I know that's expensive, but actually, let's say you're living in, Simonstown, and you've got a number of friends who feel the same way. They also want the slope above Simonstown cleared. Maybe each family can provide their gardener for a morning a week, or someone for a morning a week. And then that means you've got a permanent team once a week. Every Tuesday morning, you know that there's 5 guys going up to do it, to go and work on that slope. And preferably try to pair that team with a local community hack group who would work on a Saturday. Maybe the team can work then as well. It just means that it gives it sustainability, because it means that once that area, once the slope the initial clearing is done, it means that by the time that is done, the local community is really very aware of the problem, and they know how to identify the species, and they will then do all the follow-ups to keep that slope clear in perpetuity. Use iNaturalist for IDing species. We've got Tony Rubella, but everyone else has got iNaturalist. Use WhatsApp groups for comms, because it means you can really have a sense of what's going on before and after pictures, etc. Important to use good tools. It's only when you hack yourself that you realize that a sharp set of loppers makes a huge difference. You can get 4 times more work done. A good chainsaw, etc. And then good technique. When you apply herbicide, it has to be literally within seconds of cutting that stem. Otherwise, the plant has a survival mechanism that starts to secrete something which protects, the, I guess it's water, and hardens, and then the herbicide won't work as well. And then, get all your friends involved, because it's great exercise and it's very addictive and it's good fun. And the more people who do it, the more you'll get done. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation.
Thank you very much, Maya and Sandra, for sharing those insights with us. I can see that the people really loved it. There's lots of emojis coming your way. Yeah, a really successful project. There's, I think, many key messages. The link between your teams and volunteers is something that people can easily tap into and get involved. Also through Michelle, your invasive alien clearing network. I'm sure there's a WhatsApp group that a volunteer could potentially join, to really get involved, if not already. And then the point of collaboration and overlap with your partners. I think your 2 organizations were also mentioned in terms of working together in the Overberg. Just because our resources and capacity in the conservation space really is quite stretched at the moment, and it's quite unlikely, even though we would like it to change, but it's unlikely that it will change drastically in the near future. So thank you. There's lots of good practical insights also. There's one question from Sue and Sandra, and I think it relates to what you spoke about earlier in the presentation. So Sue is asking, what exactly is the link with the Working for Water program in your project?
So Working for Water, so Sandparks does have Working for Water teams on Table Mountain. I think actually about 20 of them. But Working for Water was initially the way that Guy Preston, who founded the whole project, the way that he got the funding for it was it was all around job creation. So it's not a highly effective way to clear alien vegetation, because the people who work on the teams there's quite a high turnover, a lot of women, and this is really tough work. So it's sending people out to do quite manual labor. We prefer to use men. So those teams they're not highly effective. They're not well trained, because there's such a high turnover, and they're very badly paid, because it's government. It's an EPWP, Extended Public Works Program. It's part of that. So they're not well paid. So they're not very well incentivized or sort of encouraged. So Sandparks, they've done their best, Sandparks, but it's difficult for them. And they're also subject to a lot of regulations and restrictions that we are not subject to. So for example, after a fire, for this fire now that happened in April, the Takai Silver Mine fire, there's a restriction which says that Working for Water may not go in for the first 18 months. Now, in 18 months' time, they're going to see what you saw in that picture that Maya showed you with all that Port Jackson, 2 meters high. So Sandparks, that's why they've asked us to handle the fire response, because we're not subject to those restrictions, and we're just going to go in immediately and pull. So yes, so on the whole, the Working for Water teams are working more in the south of Table Mountain National Park, and we're doing more north, and hopefully between the 2 groups, we are going to come right and get the entire park completely under control.
Thanks for that, Sandra. Perhaps I can allow one more question, but so there's someone, Erika is asking, who advises you on the herbicide, and how it, what works basically for certain species?
Well, we're very lucky. We've got Tony Rubella, who, as I said, seems to know everything about everything. But everyone else has Michelle de Bruyn, because what Michelle and Rupert have done is they've started a network. And if you join that network, once again, it's WhatsApp driven, the communication is on WhatsApp, and you can just pop your question about which herbicide is best, et cetera, onto that. There's different groups on the network, but it can be, you know, techniques, whatever. And Tony Rubello is on that network, and he's so keen that he will answer you, and you'll get Tony's advice or someone else's advice. Everyone is so keen to help everyone, and so it was fantastic that Michelle started this network, because it really just means that there's such a lot of sharing of information and just encouragement and feeling like you're not the only ones doing it. You know, yes, we're doing it here, but someone else is doing it somewhere else. Michelle and Rupert are doing it, you know, in their area, and it's a great network to be on if you're remotely interested in starting up a something in your area.
Great, thanks for that. So we look forward to Michelle's presentation, where she will elaborate on that network and also, I think, tell people how to get involved on that WhatsApp group. There's, I just want to flag it. Basically, we don't have to go into the details, but just to acknowledge, there's one or two questions. There's one from Lereko, who's asking about, you know, how to effectively eradicate and manage a grass, so Leucocidia sericea. I think that's a great place perhaps to pose that question, Lereko, you know, for the experts, unless, Michelle, you would like to shed some light on it in your presentation or afterwards. And then there's also a valid question, you know, lots of biomass obviously coming from these woody species. And are there any ideas or opportunities to repurpose this biomass in a way that could potentially generate revenue or support funding for the projects? I know of a few examples, but I don't want to take up too much time. I know in the Overberg around Napier, there's currently quite good work being done, you know, in the don't want to say biochar, but in the secondary material production. So perhaps we can see how much time we've got afterwards just to discuss that as a panel also. But at this point, I'm going to say thank you to Sandra and Maya for your contributions and excellent work. And we wish you all the success with the Sugarbird program and hope it grows from strength to strength. Then I'm going to hand over to Michelle. Michelle de Bruin is one of the directors of Wild Restoration. Rupert Barnard couldn't be here tonight. He's enjoying a much needed break, so we're happy for him to take some time off. But Michelle is going to share with us their program and how they approach things in a different area of the Western Cape, so around Greyton. Michelle, yeah, very, very open to you. I mean, I should probably introduce you formally also. So Michelle has more than 20 years of experience as a project manager, and she's worked a lot in the policy space also, in over 18 countries in Africa. And she has a strong background in policy development, strategy development, and collaborative innovation. We love all of those things, Michelle. And she's passionate about applying this experience, particularly to protect the biodiversity of the Cape Floristic region. So thank you, Michelle. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Martina, and lovely to be with all of you this evening. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully it'll come through for you. A little bit about us as Wild Restoration, in addition to what Martina's mentioned. So we're also a non-profit and a public benefit organization. We're quite new kids to the block. We started in 2022 and have been growing quite rapidly since then. So we do focus on invasive clearing, and our purpose in that is around biodiversity restoration and creating opportunities for people to reconnect with nature. So like Andy and Maya said, clearing can be addictive, and we sort of see it as a gateway drug to environmental action for people to start getting involved in the places that they love and care about and use regularly. We're involved both on the ground in clearing, so clearing in our areas, and also trying to support the system to become more effective. And yeah, so Martina gave a bit of a background for me, and Rupert has a similar background, and we're trying our best to apply that experience into the space and hopefully bring some contribution to how things operate. So yes, we started in Greyton, which for those who don't know, is up in this area, working up in the mountains, mostly pine, and then also in an area called the Sandpit, which is a smorgasbord of invasives in a very precious area, one of the few lowland areas with wetlands that hasn't been farmed, the whole of the Overberg. We started expanding out in that area. We've also now, since in the last year and a half or so, started moving to other areas of the Overberg, including in a really interesting site, South Africa's model farm, which has got some precious biodiversity in this area, and into the Tessenstall area. So progressively moving into other parts of Overberg. And a big development in the last few weeks is managed to reach an agreement with Cape Nature nature reserve in a, I guess, a similar way to what Sugarbird is doing in sandparks. So supporting, they also have some public works programs, but it's not been sufficient to be able to tackle the huge scale of what's of the need in that area to clear the invasives. And the work that we're doing around supporting systems like the network that's been mentioned is across the whole Cape Coast region and a little bit further. So some of the lessons that we've learned, similar, I guess, to Sugarbird at one level, we started out just with volunteers, and we realized to really have an impact, it's hard to do it just with volunteers. So we started having a local community team that works days a week with us and could work regularly in our area and help support training and also support their livelihoods. And then recently we're also working with contractors. So in addition to public works that was mentioned, land care programs, and a lot of those budgets have been under huge pressure, and there are a lot of teams who experience but don't currently have work, and also periods of the year when the public sector budget's not available, and often get left lost out of the area. And so
Michelle,
yes,
I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
I just want to ask if you can speak a little bit closer to the microphone. So your internet seems to dip slightly, but perhaps if you just sit a little bit closer to your microphone, then that sound can come through for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's try also maybe with the headphones a little bit differently. Is that any better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, as I was saying, contractors, often we're losing contractors because they're not having regular income, and so we're also trying to support them to be able to work in their areas. We do a lot of partnering as well. So for example, we work with the HeliHack initiative. We work with other experts who can advise us on best approaches for clearing, including where biocontrols might be more appropriate, where fire might be more appropriate, and also, sort of how we prioritize within areas that we work in, given the scale of what needs to happen. Then also, Martina asked us to just talk a little bit about what helps keep people going, whether it's volunteers or crew or contractors, and any tips that we might have from our experience. So one of the things that we've learned is that there are lots of different things that keep people motivated. And one of the first things is actually the satisfaction of clearing, because you can see the result quite quickly. As Sandra was saying, it's very physical, so you get this kind of kick from the physicality of it. And you can sort of quite immediately have a feeling like I'm making a difference. And so this is one of the sites where there's a seep right at the top of one of the mountains in Great, and we know how precious that water is to support wildlife in the area, and it also goes down into the village. And being able to clear the pines from around there is really going to help everyone. And since then, we've seen leopard coming down to drink in this pool. So it's really, really satisfying to know that. There's also the sense of belonging and community that people can have from being part of these initiatives together and being part of a team and achieving these things together, and often also breaking down barriers that might have been there in a small village, for example, where people wouldn't have known each other otherwise. There's the fun and the thrill of it as well, which for some people, especially young people, can draw them in. So for example, the HeliHacks, people get to, if they are sufficiently experienced, get to suspend themselves below the helicopter to reach the sites. Also, like Sandra's mentioned, especially for teams and contractors, if they feel appreciated and recognized and valued in the work, both in terms of being paid reasonably, but also being acknowledged and celebrated in their work, then it can make a big difference. And also for volunteers, it's the same in the sense that a lot of groups who have volunteers, mention people by name. They appreciate them within a group and share within the reporting on that group the individual contributions that everyone can make. Great snacks and food also very important, and we've had feedback on this from various groups. And sharing food together is also such a human thing that helps people feel part of something. And also with crews, when we do our wild camping trips up onto the top of the mountains, we also make sure that they're very well fed and nourished. It's as was mentioned, it's incredibly hard work. And so that just coming back to a good, warm, hearty meal at the end of the day is also very important. And ultimately, of course, the biodiversity benefits. And for those, we're fortunate that we're going back into areas regularly where we've cleared. And when you start seeing plants coming back, you start seeing wildlife returning and thriving. It's so important and really helps us all to stay motivated and to see that we're on the right track in supporting nature to restore. We track our work also, which helps motivate as well, but also is excellent for reporting and for fundraising using GPS watches. So for the teams who are chainsawing, they track every single tree that they're cutting. And then we can develop maps, both of each individual and what they've cut, but also collective maps of what we've achieved in an area. And that really helps, well, both for our record keeping, but also just for there's a little bit of gentle positive competition that can help keep people going. We also like to try different methods. So for example, the wattle on the left there in this image, we've been trying techniques where we use a chainsaw tool or a chisel to fully strip off the bark once it's cut. And we've had no regrowth when we do that straight after we're cutting. So especially in areas that are close to wetlands, if we can avoid using the herbicide, we would like to do that. And also a person in the network developed a little tool for dispersing the herbicide in a very, very focused way onto the cambium layer of the tree. And that also means we can use less herbicide and much less likely to fall into the surrounding area. And we're also finding that very effective. Yeah, there was a question about biomass. So we do chip some of our invasives. It can't work in all areas because there's where it's inaccessible. For example, in the mountain work, it's not feasible to get the chips out or to get the chipper up to the area. But in the Greyton area, we're very fortunate that there are residents who have sufficient income to buy the chips for their gardens, and that we can minimize the handling and send it directly on the chipping truck. So that's very useful. And when we started, that was the main thing that was funding our local community team. We've also sent plastic-free chips up to Africa Burn. So a lot of the chips that are commercially available have been bagged before, so they can't guarantee that there won't be plastic in them. And then we've also contributed to a trial with WWF and South African breweries and a company called Noncrete around concrete substitutes, which is a very exciting area. And Noncrete's also looking at low-cost housing using a composite from invasives, and I just think that's a massive area of opportunity going forward. We're also trying other things which might sound a bit wacky for some people, but we think are quite important in terms of reconnecting people with nature and helping to deal with people's anxiety about climate change or climate grief or environmental grief. So we are also combining ecotherapy with clearing, so people have the experience of doing something useful for nature and then reflecting on it. And we're looking forward to doing more of that. This was facilitated by Nicola Laser, who's a registered counsellor. We also, which I'm sure would be of interest to the BOTSOC audience, looking at how we can really align clearing with biodiversity priorities and both threatened plants, but plants that might be index plants or keystone species in an area. So we started collaborating with Sandy and crew around this. So this is an example that we did as a bit of a trial in the Greyton Mountains of clearing, looking at where there were records on species that needed to be protected and clearing around them and tracking that clearing. So this Clatia species, for example, now in the short term at least has a much greater likelihood of not being threatened by the pines around the seep. And we'll continue to do follow-up to make sure that that gain can be sustained. Also on the South African brewery site, we've collaborated with crew and other botanists to look at what plants are in the various areas, both the mountains and the lowlands, and found a population of ericas which wasn't expected to be in that area, which has now gone to the herbarium for checking, and we're hoping to be able on an ongoing basis to be able to protect that area and make sure those precious plants are protected. And we see a lot of opportunity going forward for that kind of collaboration. The network was mentioned. So we have supported incubating a network, which now has over 100 members. It's really a sign how many people care in the respective areas, but also the need for support and reinforcement and encouragement of each other. So these members spread across the whole Cape Floristic region. If you're interested in joining, if you're not there already and interested in joining, there's a form on our website on wildrestoration.org that you can contact us, or you can contact our email there, and we can contact you to see how you can be involved. And there are lots of different resources that are being co-developed by the members based on all the input from amazing people like Tanya Rubello that Sandra was mentioning, and all the other members. So for example, we developed a guide around techniques, starting with some of the most regular ones. Also one on planning and prioritizing, how to sort of, eat the elephant in small bites. And as part of that, we've also developed some short videos. We're hoping to be able to do some more that can just explain the very practical things about how to optimize how you're clearing. I'm not going to share this one now because of time, but it's a resource that is available to people if they're curious and want to learn, and hopefully will help them to get over the sort of the obstacles of getting going, becoming an invasive clearer. And that's it. There's also a short video. I don't know, Martina, if we've still got time to show that, or we want to go to...
It is part of a broader project which is funded by the European Outdoor Conservation Association. They fund projects all over the world doing great conservation work. Now we're here in the Great Nature Reserve. We've got one of our gutters down there who's just started up his chainsaw. And this is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's an amazing area for biodiversity. Now this project is clearing about 280 hectares. We've got a team down there of volunteers working with our local community crew.
And essentially, like I'm standing here in the view, you can see for miles. It's a real privilege to be able to camp in a place like this, in a remote camp where there are no facilities and you're just wild camping. It's really awesome. And it's very difficult to do in South Africa. So, I mean, that's been a real privilege to be able to experience that here with this team who are incredible. The work they're doing is incredible, how dedicated they are.
Okay, my name's Kate Lameth. I'm a medical biochemist and I work with UCT and I'm a researcher as well. I got into heli hacking mostly because I'm really passionate about killing alien vegetation, and I'm a climber and a surfer and I'm in the mountains a lot. I mean, that's our job, is basically to get rid of the high altitude trees in inaccessible places with the aid of a chopper and very, very good pilots.
Hi, I'm Julian Snyders. I'm with Wild Restoration and Greyton Conservation Society. We're busy with the heli hack here in the Greyton Nature Reserve, quite high up in the mountain above the village of Greyton. We're busy with, I believe, our third heli hack in the Greyton Nature Reserve, so we're making good progress getting rid of the pines that's growing quite densely on our mountains. We've got a massive team making a huge impact. As you can see, the pines going down behind me.
And on this incredible mountain, I think we've got a sense of many of the moods of the mountain, from the hail and the sun and the water and the incredible diversity. I mean, we've got this king protea sitting in our campsite sharing space with us, and you can see what would happen if you just let the pines have their way, that we would lose so many precious things, and we hope that many other people will feel the urge to do that and help them to reconnect with nature by doing that as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle, for also sharing that video with us. I think the first question that I'll point to you, Michelle, but Sandra sort of answered it already. But I think there's a question from Sue that says, is there funding available for new teams starting out in areas, in new areas, I guess? So if you could, I mean, we all know what more or less the answer would be, but yeah, if you just want to respond to that, maybe.
Sorry, were you wanting Sandra to answer or me to answer?
Sorry, Michelle. Yeah.
Okay. We constantly fundraising to try and find other revenues. So we're funded by a range of philanthropists as well as our own income. But it is a challenge, and it's one of the areas that I think everyone needs to collectively look at how far to find additional funding, and also to advocate to government to return some of the funding that has been reduced over the last few years as a an essential area to support our biodiversity. But if people are interested, they can also get in contact with us, and we can also try and point them to groups that are active in other areas who may have funding streams as well. So they're welcome to do that.
Thank you. And then there's a question. So the person is saying, having recently started clearing a burnt area from black wattle seedlings, the hackers saw that they were being eaten by steenbok. Have you witnessed something like that before in your area? And then the second part of the question is, having listened to a talk from Alan Wood about pathogens, could that possibly be used more in the future?
Yeah, very interesting question. We've heard from someone, we haven't experienced it in our area, but we've heard if they clear thin strips, they're getting browsing on them, also porcupines browsing. So I think that was Luke Mecklerkamp as part of the Cape Winelands biosphere. So that's an interesting potential strategy if it's, in small areas that it's sort of focusing the attention on. I think the pathogens definitely is an area. There was a recent, Britt Vadersbos did a recent webinar with Alan Wood and others on that. And unfortunately, the research budgets there have also been pulled, but there is stump out and hack attack, for example, which are funguses, which can be used very effectively. And we do use the hack attack in our mountains, especially during the rainy time of the year. It's very effective. Hope that sort of partly answers the question.
Yeah, not an easy one, and we're certainly hoping that we can, as a conservation sector, hopefully address the shortcoming in terms of funding for the biocontrol. The biocontrols, it could work really well, but there's also a lot of, I think, research that we still desperately need in that field to really understand how, biocontrols and their life cycles impact or could potentially impact on alien plants. I think those are the questions that I could see in the chat for you, Michelle. So from our side, just thank you very much. And I would remind and encourage people to really get in touch with Wild Restoration's Invasive Alien Action Network. It's the link to the website is popped in the chat also there. And there's on the website then a form that you complete. It's not a very cumbersome form, and you can then basically, tap into the action network that Wild Restoration is navigating and sort of, organizing with different groups. So from our side, Michelle, thank you very much. And we also hope to see lots of exciting things happening in the space of Wild Restoration over the next couple of months and years coming forward.
Thank you so much. And I saw a question about using the video. It is on our YouTube and people are very welcome to use it. That's why we did it, to try and get people involved who may not be clearing already, but who love the mountains or use the mountains or involved in nature. So you're most welcome to use it for that purpose.
Thank you. Sandra and Maya, you can switch on your cameras if you still with us, and just to give us a last wave. I'd like to say thank you very much to our audience also. Thank you, our WhatsApp members and volunteers for joining us. There's a little one, as it is that time of the evening. And yeah, just a reminder also that through the WhatsApp branches, and especially I'm thinking of our Kogelberg branch, I know they're very involved also with the Overberg hacking groups, and also with Wild Restoration. I think there's some potential links to be made with your projects and programs. But just to encourage all our members and volunteers or citizen scientists, you certainly don't have to be a botanist to be involved in any of these projects. And we could use all the hands and capacity that we could possibly get. So please support these great projects. Thank you very much. Just a gentle reminder for the audience, our next webinar will be on the last Thursday of July. So that will be on the 31st of July. Cherise Viljoen will be hosting that webinar for us in July, and we look forward to see you then. Thank you. Have a good evening and see you all in the field.
Thank you very much, Martina. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Bye.